Welcome to another video by Pharaoh's Technology. Today we're going to talk about tables, inserting tables into your Word document and how to manipulate them and work with them so that it can give you the look and feel that you want for your users or your readers. So let's open a Word document here. And in order to find where to put a table into your document, if you use the word insert, it'll give you a clue as to where to find it. In fact, it is on the insert menu. You click on there, and right under the word insert, there's tables. We're going to insert a table. And by clicking the down arrow here, you can go ahead and draw the number of rows and columns that you want in your table, and it'll give you a picture of what it's going to look like on the right. And when I click OK or click the cell, it will then draw my table for me. So as we draw it, and as the cursor is either in it or you've highlighted it in some manner, you'll get these two extra ribbon tabs. Those two ribbon tabs, the table design and the layout, is where you'll do the majority of your work to define and to lay out your table the way that you desire your users to see it. The layout tab is the one that you'll probably use the most. It's where you are able to insert rows above and below. It allows you to check your grid lines and put your grid lines in and take them out. Right now, what you're seeing in the table is borders, and borders are on the table design, and you can adjust what kind of borders you have and tell it not to have borders at all, for that matter. So on layout here, what I want to show you right now is that this allows you to manipulate the table in the way that you want it. Like, for example, I like putting a title in the top row of my tables. And by doing so, I can highlight that top row. And let's say I want that title to span all of the columns. All I have to do is merge that entire top row together. And by merging it together, it allows me to then type in only one cell here, and it will actually be the whole breadth of the cell. Now, usually I want my titles centered, and so if I go now just to my Home tab, I can modify the text in that cell based on just all of my normal text tools that you should already be familiar with. So let's say I instead want to center my text in that cell. I can click my centering tool here in my paragraph group. If I want that text to be larger, I can highlight the text and increase the size of the text, and notice that the cell height continues to change as my text continues to change. If the text gets big enough that it wants to flow beyond the right or left border, it will actually word wrap. So the word text title would be on two separate rows if it went beyond the width of the cell. I can make it bold, I can make it italics, I can even underline it or do any of the font items that I can do in any normal text anywhere else in my document. So back to the layout tab. Let's say I want to insert a row. I can insert a row above or below where I've highlighted. Let's say I want to insert a column. I'm going to highlight my column here. Now, if you don't have any cells merged, you can float your mouse above the table, and then when you click on it, it will highlight just the one cell up and down. Because I have the top row merged, that won't work. In fact, when I click on it, it highlights the whole thing, because it'll highlight that whole first cell and anything under it. So if I want to insert a column or under my text title, I would need to go down and highlight the column underneath the text title. Then I can insert a column to the right, or I can go over here and I can insert another column to the right. And notice that it is bounding my text title, but let's say I still want my text title to span. I might increase the size of my text title, and so I don't want it limited by just those three cells in the center. So I can then re-merge that whole text title, and it'll put it back centered again. So there are also ways to insert rows, and there's actually two different ways to insert a row. One is to float your mouse over here and you get this nice little plus symbol and you get a line straight across showing you where the row is going to be inserted. So if I want to insert it here in the middle, so let's say I've got a 1 in that cell and a 2 in that cell, but I want to insert a row of text in here. So I can go ahead and click this plus and it'll insert the row just where that line ended up being. As you navigate around your table, another neat trick is that of course the arrow keys will work. I'm using the right arrow key right now. I'm using the down arrow key to go up and down, and those all work perfectly fine. The neat thing about it though is if you use the right arrow key, it'll take you right out of the table if you go beyond the right hand margin. But another way to navigate from row to row and cell to cell going across is to use the tab key. So using the tab key looks the same as using the right arrow key, except when you get to that bottom right tab, it'll put in another row for you. So if you're adding rows of text and you're going from one cell to the right, to the right, to the right, and then you need the next row, all you have to do is hit the tab and it'll carry right along, putting the next row in there. Now the last thing that I want to share with you today is the fact that your table can look just the way that you originally draw it, or you can get rid of the grid lines, or you can add different colorings to it. So let's go over to the table design tab here. Now the borders here, for example, the borders allow me to design my table the way I want it. So let's say I want for my title, I'm going to put the cursor in my title, and I want the borders around that to be a different width, for example. So I choose 1.5, and now I'm going to tell my borders to be more bold in my outside borders. And there I can play with it and make it look a little bit more like what I want to present. But let's say I don't want borders at all. I can go ahead and turn the borders off. Now I'm going to highlight my whole table by clicking this left button here. Now I'm going to go here and tell it to do no borders at all, and all my borders will disappear. Now sometimes it's a little disconcerting not knowing exactly where all your cells are, so that you can go ahead and, without having to have the borders here, you can go ahead and highlight inside here. I'm going to highlight the whole thing, and I'm going to go back to my layout tab here, and I want to tell it to show my grid lines. In other words, it'll show where the lines are supposed to be. When you print it, those lines won't be there, but they're visually there so that you can use them while you're still laying out your text and getting it centered and getting it presentable the way that you want to present it. And then when you don't need your grid lines anymore, you just click that again and your grid lines go away. Now on table design, there's one last thing. Table design allows you to very quickly format your table in various colors, various columns and rows, and various different ways to present it. A lot of times you'll want your table to look in a way other than just the normal way it's being presented. So I'm going to go ahead and choose one of my favorites here. So I'm going to click that one. And notice when I click out of it that I have a table that has blue as my basic theme, and then it has every other row highlighted in darker blue and then white. Now if I click in my last cell and hit tab to add another row, it'll continue that every other row highlighting, so that as you're adding text, you can make it so that your user can see across a lot easier. This is especially good when you've got a bunch of dense text and you want to make sure that the data at the far right stays connected with the row title on the far left, so your users don't get confused that way. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it really gets you familiar with the basics, and hope you'll join me again sometime. Thanks. If you enjoyed the content that you saw today and would like to help me grow the channel, hover your mouse over my picture to the left and click on subscribe. There are also other videos showing on the screen that you might enjoy.